Hello. Today, a problem made in three moves by Uri Avner, who was a grandmaster, and we published a book of his problems that he prepared during his life, and he died about 10 years ago. And this is the number 2 of the book. It's a problem that he composed when he was a teenager. He was about 14, and it's a very nice problem. And if you want to solve it, you can try, and I give immediately the solution. So we can see that the jail of the black king is completely done. You have the e3 square that is controlled by the pawn d2 and the pawn f2. d3 is controlled by the rook. c3 is controlled by the rook, the pawn d2 and the knight a4. c4 is controlled by the bishop b3 and the queen e6. c5 is controlled by the knight. d5 is controlled by the bishop and the queen, and e5 is controlled by the queen, by the bishop, and that's all. And e4 is controlled also by the queen and by the rook, e3, and is blocked by the pawn on e4. So it is the black king is completely closed. He has no flight. And we have very strong black pieces all around the board, and then the possible ways for white are limited. So the key, you have to, when you want to solve, you can just pay attention to the fact that many unused pieces look on squares that are on the northwest of the board, and then you can understand that if during the solution the king has to come in that area in c5, it will not be. It might be that we will find a mate. So the solution is, in fact, knight to c5. That is giving a flight. But if the king goes and takes, you have immediately a queen d5 mate. So to go to c5 is not for black a very good idea immediately. So we have to find why white go to c5, and we can understand that the fact that the queen is occupying e6 may mean that the queen will leave e6 by giving check, or on d6, or on d5, or on e5, or on e4, or even on f6, or on c4, and then we'll have the mate by knight e6. But in fact, all these moves appear to be not working, not efficient. So let's have a look. Queen to d6. If let's say if the black play a neutral move like h6, g6. If we play queen to d6, check, then you will have pawn takes, give check, and you will not give mate at the next move. Also, if we play queen to e5, you will have pawn takes, and then the rook controls e6. If you play queen to e4, check, the pawn takes, and then the bishop controls e6 and even gives a check to the white king. So once again you will not have mate. And then the same if you play queen to d5, pawn takes, and now this rook controls e6. You can have a look also at the fact that queen c4, pawn takes, after knight to e6, white now, black has a flight on d5 because the bishop b3 is not anymore controlling d5. So, what are the defenses against this? Wait. First, I have to show the threat. So the threat is rook d3. As we saw, if you play king takes to c5, you have queen d5 mate, or rook d5. Now, if black takes on d3, then you have queen e3 mate. So I show again, rook to d3, and then you have a mate or on d5 or on e3. So let's have a look at what black can do to defend this threat. Let's say first queen g5, that is controlling e3. So now you cannot anymore play rook to d3 because there is no mate on e3. But now the line g7, d7 has been abandoned by black, so you can play queen d6, pawn takes, and knight e6. If black play rook to h3, then you have no more the line h6, e6, and you can play queen to e5, pawn takes, and knight to e6. If bishop plays to e2, it defends, because now if rook checks, bishop takes, and you will not have mate on e3. So, but the bishop abandoned the line g4, d7, and then you have queen e4 check, pawn takes, and knight mates. A fourth defense is rook takes on a3, that is giving a future flight on b4, and prepares on rook d3, king to c5. You will no more have a mate on d5 because of the flight. But here also the rook left the line a6 to d6, and then you may play queen to d5, pawn takes, and knight to e6. So all in all, we have 4 very nice variations with 4 batteries against or e6 or d7, the rook, the queen, the bishop, and the other rook. And all that works wonderfully, and I hope you enjoyed it. There is a small technical element that I wanted to underline. This is only for people that are interested in chess composition, how this is built, and it was made by a very young composer, and his main thought was to make it as light as possible. You have already many pieces on the board, and a small rule when you compose a problem is to minimize the number of pieces you use. But here you have a small, you might use a small change in the position, and because you have a knight on a8 that has as only use to control the square on c5. After the key, you need to control b6 for preparing the mate on d5. So this square has to be controlled by white. And if you, when you compose the problem, instead of giving a knight on a8, you could also think to control this by a pawn on a5, and then the defense would be rook 2 takes on a5. But if you have this, you will need to use a new control for black on c6. So I explain now. When Uri made his problem, the defense rook takes a3, we said abandons the line to d6, and it is used to give rook checks, knight king to c5, and then you have not the mate because of the flight on b4, but also you have not the mate on c6. Queen c6 also is forbidden for because of the flight on b4. The rook controlled before this square c6, but now you cannot use it because also you have the flight on b4. So let's have a look at what happens if we change a little bit the way of building the problem. If we put a white pawn on a5, then we need to put a black pawn on b7 to control c6, and then we'll have, after the key, rook takes a5 as a defense, and it will work because of the pawn b7 that is controlling c6. And on rook takes on a5, you have only queen d5, pawn takes, and knight mates. In the published diagram, rook takes knight after the key, rook takes knight a8 is a kind of defense, because now after rook d3 check, king takes on c5, you have no more the mate on d5, nor with the queen, nor with the rook, because of the square b6. But you have the mate or with the queen or with the rook on c6. And then the move rook a6 take takes on A8 is not really a full defense. It is a defense only after the first move. It is a small defect, and you have two small defects here. One, knight that is very unemployed, very low use, just in the threat for the control of b6. And the other defect is that you have a semi-defense that has nothing to do with the general content of the problem. And then I'm sure that if the author had the time to look back at this problem when before that he published the book, he would give this kind of position: a white pawn on a5 and a black or black pawn on b7, or a black knight on a7, or something like that. Well, this kind of details I don't know if many people are interested in, but in any case I show that. So have a nice continuation. We'll meet again for the next problem, and have a nice time. Bye.